research has suggested that good is triumphing over hate. There's been an academic investigation, in particular on anti-Semitism on Twitter, and found that actually most of the really grim stuff that you see is in its own little echo chamber. It doesn't get as much oxygen to thrive as you would imagine. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's right, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be doing our best to kind of get rid of it. But at least it isn't spreading.
I hate the cowardice of it.
Yeah, well, it's anonymous people.
Sitting there in that little room, disgusting individuals saying, "Oh, I'll say this about you, you'll never know who I am."
Yeah.
You're a darn coward. If you've got anything to say, put your name and address, you stinking coward.
Absolutely. Right, we've got Mark Gardner, who's the Director of Communications at Community Security Trust, which is a Jewish charity, on the line. Hi, Mark, how are you?
Hello, Jamie. I'm fine, thanks. I was just smiling here at everything that Kim is saying.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's the level of trolling that I've ever experienced, or that Kim's had people setting up fake accounts, is nothing compared to kind of some of the grim stuff that your charities had to deal with in terms of anti-Semitism and stuff like that. But it appears that as though that there is hope out there.
Yeah, I think it's quite human, isn't it? You kind of remember the nasty things that people say. It sticks in your mind, and maybe you just don't think of all the good, normal stuff that goes on. So the hateful stuff, it makes the news, but the good stuff, the everyday stuff, it doesn't make the news. So it doesn't really impact on people. And it was really good, actually, to see the outcome of this investigation, and it was a pretty big amount of research.
And so what did it show? It showed that what, people just aren't listening, or that they're just not, the horrible tweets, the trolling isn't getting as much traction as we think. Well,
we started off with 31 million tweets, believe it or not, that were basically about Jews, and then from that it was boiled down to 2.7 million that were in Britain. Out of that, just under 1% had some kind of anti-Semitism. So even there, there's 100 conversations about Jews, less than one of them is actually racist. So let's bear that in mind. That's a good thing in terms of context.
Yes.
And it's very similar to the report that the same people, the academics at Cardiff University, did into anti-Muslim hate crime as well. So you see these consistencies. But then the things spike when stuff in the real world happens. And in the course of this study, it was unfortunately the nonsense around Labour and anti-Semitism.
Right, okay, the whole Corbyn
spike of stuff online. Yeah. And well, the outcome is that basically the hateful stuff, it survives on Twitter for somewhere between 1 and 3 days. And if people pick it up, they spread it amongst themselves, it might last for up to a week. But the counter hate and just the normal stuff that's put out by groups like my own in opposition to this, that would generally last for longer, generally about twice as long as the hateful material.
And why is that, do you think? Just because actually, once you dig into it, you find that there's more good people around than bad, or?
Yeah, exactly. There's more good people than bad, and they retweet it, they send it around, they add their own thoughts to it, and also the hateful stuff. Twitter are better than they used to be at removing it. I mean, it still takes too long as far as we're concerned, but they are better than they used to be. So they're literally taking off the worst of the material. What's the turnaround really from when you report an account to actually it disappearing? Unfortunately, it depends who you are. If you're a member of the public, it can take a very long time, or it might not happen at all. If you're an organisation like my own, Community Security Trust, you might have trusted flagger status, in which case you get an immediate turnaround within 24 hours, and if you don't like it, then you can bump it upstairs and get another decision taken on it. Also, if you're a VIP, maybe your stuff would get taken quicker as well. Yeah, I mean, the old blue tick does get you some kind of favours, which isn't very fair, is it? I would imagine there's, we talk about kind of the trolling, and it's generally with kind of companies or with high profile people, but there's a massive level of just one-to-one nastiness. Correct, around, isn't correct. There? And you can find yourself on the receiving end of it very, very quickly. Once these people get it into their heads to go after you, it's really, really nasty. And there's something, I think a few years ago, people used to say, oh, it's not real, it's just social media, as if it somehow exists in a different living space.
No, exactly.
I mean, I've suffered verbal abuse on the street, and it comes and it goes. You're walking down the street, someone shouts at you. It's upsetting, but it's actually different to when people know who you are because they're coming after you on your account, and it's on your phone and it's in the palm of your hand, and then other people pile in, and you're like, how do I stop this? How do I get away from this? That eats into your head.
So, what advice are you the Community Security Trust giving to British Jews in terms of tackling this? Is it just kind of, what's your practical advice to people?
Sure. Well, we're here to facilitate Jewish life, not to publicise anti-Semitism. So the first thing to say is, guys, let's get this into context. Let's get a sense of perspective. The same as with like horrible anti-Semitic attacks that you might read about in the newspapers, actually day-to-day Jewish life is completely normal, completely good. This might happen to you. Most of the time, it won't. Then the other thing is that there are mechanisms in place. So come to us at CST. We can intercede with Twitter or with Facebook or YouTube on your behalf, and we can hopefully get action taken pretty quickly.
And have you ever had to prosecute anyone, or to kind of take it further than just removing them? Is it?
Yes, there have been prosecutions, of course. Material gets passed on to the police. One of the biggest problems in all of this is like Kim said at the beginning, they're cowards. They think they're anonymous and they can get away with it. And actually, some of them are anonymous a lot of the time. Maybe if you had to properly register in order to use some of these services, people wouldn't be quite so quick to behave in this kind of way.
I saw someone put on Twitter this morning, actually, kind of an idea would be that everybody gets a blue tick. So everyone gets a verified tick, providing that you verified either a phone number or a credit card, so that you cannot hide behind anonymity. And
and then let consumers choose. Let consumers choose if they want to use a social media platform where everybody has registered somewhere with the company, their real name and address. Or their credit card detail.
And have any social media platforms like Facebook or Twitter, have they ever tried to engage you in a conversation other than a reactive conversation about yes, we'll get rid of them, no, we're not going to get rid of them? Have they?
Yes.
Is there a conversation happening about how they can tackle the problem?
They're much hotter on it than they used to be. At the beginning, if you imagine these are companies basically run out of California, where these people have all freedom of speech and libertarian attitudes, and then basically over time they realized first of all that it was contrary to race hate legislation in Britain and across Europe and in many other countries. And then, I think, to be honest, the election of Donald Trump gave them all a bit of a surprise. All of a sudden, they were like, hold on a minute, did we actually play some kind of part in this through these Russian robot accounts and all the rest of it, false news, all this kind of thing?
Yeah.
Their attitude has changed. It really has.
Mark, it's been wonderful to speak to you. It sounds you're doing a great job, and thank you, and keep it up. It's Mark Gardner, Director of Communications at Community Security Trust, which is a Jewish charity helping out Jews all throughout Britain who are victims of anti-Semitism, or in particular kind of trolls and social media. So do look them up if you need some help.